Joining us now on the main stage, Hussein Attar, venture capitalist, tech influencer, and CEO of the 1 billion Rial VC and PE fund Tech investcom, focused on early stage opportunities in the region. Hussein is a frequent public speaker, ecosystem enabler here in Saudi Arabia, helping others to establish, invest, and grow in this marketplace. He joins us from Riyadh. Hussein, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Hussein, it's so great to have you on today. And what we would like to do is kind of talk both big picture on the development of entrepreneurship in Saudi and the tech ecosystem that is there supporting it. But let's also start first by introducing you to our listeners and our viewers. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into tech and then VC?
So my journey started actually back in 2013 when Saudis first started to say entrepreneurship. What's entrepreneurship? And try to educate people about you can start a startup, what's a tech startup. And the leading of that was a company called Bader, which was an output of the government programs that were influencing people to start their own businesses. And at that time, I was actually a CEO of another company that did software development company. And I looked into what they had, and they had an event called Startup Week in Jeddah, which was a hackathon. First time, what's a hackathon? We didn't understand. They tried to educate us what it meant. Come out, bring your ideas, work together, try to make it happen. And then I joined it. And within that 3 days, I met another person. We thought of an idea together. Although we didn't win within the competition, we decided to take this forward. And we joined the first accelerator in Saudi called Flat 6 Labs. And they helped transform ideas into companies. And we were the people talking to government, talking to investors, talking to people, educating what investing into tech startup means, what's happening in the US could happen here in Saudi. These are the new ideas that you can be part of. And all of these different elements that we helped, so let's say, build the infrastructure of the tech scene you see right now here. Fast forward 5-7 years in that, learning through all the startup journey of actually raising investment through angel investors, growing that company. But at that time, there wasn't much VCs to be able to negotiate with or be able to do what you could do at this stage in Saudi. I joined at that stage an offer that came to me from Tech investcom, this firm, which apparently started back in 2005 with the 1 billion Rials, investing into private equity. And now they wanted to do VC. They said, Hussein, you've been there, you've known the investors, you know the tech startups and founders. We'd like you to join us and run this VC arm. Once I joined them, I started to invest into companies like Foodex, which is well known early on, and the bridge to Series B. We invested there. Bayzat, Luxury Closet. We also exited a company called Mom's World to Tamar. And throughout that journey, I became also the CEO of the company, running the private equity and venture capital. In addition to that, I'm now a board member of the Venture Capital Private Equity Association, which helps lobby for the sector of VC and PE in the region, helping improve incentives, improve education programs for more people to enter into the scene of VC, and also help create better regulations that help the whole ecosystem grow.
Yeah, so your journey kind of like mirrors the Saudi journey in a way. You were there super early when there were no VCs. Entrepreneurship was just really starting, but was never really sort of facilitated or nudged along by the government in a way that it is today. Can you talk about the Saudi journey as a whole, which again mirrors your story, but it's something that's taking some time to build. It must, right? Nothing happens overnight. So, you know, we're in this journey now where we have so many different ecosystem enablers. We do have venture capitalists here. We have a ton of startups. We have government support. There are multiple organizations within the government, public and private sector, you know, semi-private sector, you could say, enabling the ecosystem. Can you talk about where we are now in this journey, what's been accomplished, and then what still needs to happen to really see it grow?
Sure thing. I'd say maybe the pivotal change happened in 2019 when the first Uber Careem acquisition happened. And that opened people's eyes to, what kind of returns could happen there. Of course, we had Yahoo and Maktub and several other success stories that we kept nudging to, but that was a big, significant one that really made a huge buzz around Saudi Arabia. And at that time, also 2 funds of funds program were created, Saudi Venture Capital and Jeddah Funds of Funds. This helped enable the venture capital funds in a big way. All of them were trying to convince many of the private investors to come into VC. This is a new sector, but having government support into funding these these funds and getting the support also credibility wise and infrastructure wise and helping them also with the regulation, really helped improve the VC. And that, given the corona, of course, boost to many of the startups and the valuation that happened there. Fast forward to now, where we are in 2025, the VC in Saudi has become the top player in the region. It used to be the third in 2019. Over it was UAE and Egypt. Now it is the first in terms of funding, in terms of number of startups. It is leading in that way. And also government has played a big role in supporting this industry in a big way, creating something called the NTTP program, the National Transformation Development Program, having under it 16 or over 16 initiatives supporting startups from the early stage, MVP, creating your own, or switching from corporate into becoming a founder, until growth stage and getting venture debt, playing in all different roles into enabling these companies.
I'd love to zoom in a little bit and talk to you about Tech Investcom. So what is it that you're investing in actually, and what do you look for in promising tech companies?
Sure thing. So maybe Tech Invest is a bit different from other firms where it is an investment firm, because back in 2005, they didn't have something called VC or PE or funds and structured that way. So it was a multiple families that came together and put that money together, from Rashid, Olayan, Al Ibrahim, and different ones that came together and wanted to invest into this new sector in technology. And investing in that, they always thought, where can we be positioned to add the greatest value, and look at all of our portfolio companies and try to add value to these investments through these different companies. Focus on the venture capital side. We focused on MENA-based tech startups that are raising Series A and B. Given that they come from private equity, going into earlier stage was a bit tough for them to take that risk on. So Series A and B, growth capital, companies that needed the right capital to help them expand, we can add value through our shareholder base, was the perfect, let's say, criteria for us that we felt can really get us the best return on our investments.
I wonder, okay, so do you think that there's a secret kind of ingredient to a good startup? Are there some secret ingredients? If there are some entrepreneurs that are listening at the moment, how should they approach you and convince you that they're building something that is critical and that's needed within the market, the regional market, or even globally?
So since we come in a bit later, convincing us is already there with your traction that you can have and to provide to us. But I would say I'll give advice for any new founder that's coming into the world of startups. Number one is looking at what's your unique value proposition. Where are you coming in? Are you coming into an industry that's already a red ocean, many players, you're playing into margin and pricing? Or are you coming in with something new that is trying to shake up or disrupt an industry that you're trying to tackle? If it's the first one, you really have to come in with the right expertise in the market. You've been there, you know what's the problem, you know the challenges, why are others failing, and why are you coming in? It plays a lot on the team. The second one really comes with what's the offering that you have, convincing there's a market there, and that the solution you're going to provide will be solving that problem. And that's where many startups struggle, because it's the chicken and egg. How can I prove it without creating it? I need the funding to create it. And they run through that issue of getting their first funding to showcase what they have. And that's where the accelerators came in. Accelerators are coming in, helping many companies go from ideation into a company, giving them some funding, prove yourself so that you can showcase yourself on the debut day for investors to invest into you.
Can I follow up on that? I want to ask you a little bit more on the ideation phase and how much support can be offered at that stage. So you have like a kind of idea about a market or a solution that you want to get into, but then is there a lot of support to really turn that into something that is an actual, viable business and a great value proposition?
Yes. So I believe we have more than now 10 programs, but you have to understand which program is most convenient for you. MVP Lab, being part of the NTTP program, they are the ones that help you actually create a programmatic solution that you can offer, an app, a website, putting your idea into a technology that you start seeing if it works or not. There are MISC Launchpad that also comes to the ideation stage. They give you, if you pass their program, you get 75,000 riyals. Inspire You out of STC, also in the pre-seed seed stage. These are the right programs to go when you're still, okay, I'm thinking of doing something. But once you've actually created something and started to have some traction, there are much more sophisticated programs that can give you much more funding. Three of the most popular ones is Taqaddam out of KAUST. They give you up to $100,000. You have plastic slabs. I think they give you 150, but they also take shares. The one from Taqaddam doesn't. And Level 500. That's another very strong program. Global influence, get you global mentors helping you improve your company and scale it to the right way.
So you kind of give us a good rundown of, the things that you're looking for and what stands out to you, whatever stage that you're looking at, things that you like. Can you give us an example though of a recent investment that you made that gets you really excited? I had a meeting here yesterday morning. I met with a startup. I knew about the startup, but I was shocked at how much progress that they had made. And the guy's thinking about doing a next fundraising round and timing around it. And I just could not believe how advanced it they had gotten. And I was thinking like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to leave my wallet on the coffee table here. I'm just going to leave, you take it. It's all yours. But can you talk about something like that that's made you really excited, a recent investment you've done that you feel really inspired passion in you?
To be honest, the latest funding that we've done was announced in Leap. It was a Series B investment. We invested, the whole investment was around $28 million into a company called Merit Incentives. This was announced during Leap. One of the top investments happened within this year. They do B2B white labeling solution. What that means, they enable others to create their own loyalty systems and allow them to transfer their points to any other program. So they created a network of more than 3,000 brands that are able to talk to each other in terms of points in more than 150 countries. That's something we haven't seen any in the industry. And each time I introduce the founder to any of my business partners, they come back to say, thank you so much. This is exactly what we needed. You've solved all of our problems that we were trying to create. We got so many different companies. None of them worked. None of them understood what we wanted. And that's when you know you have a winner with you. That's the right person that you're not really selling it. You're just doing the intro and it sells by itself because it is a problem that people need. The solution they need. But another one that was a bit on the earlier stage was a company called Sci-Fi. And this one we made an exception to. We don't do before Series A, but this one, because of the founder, because of what they wanted to create, I went to the investment committee and told them, this is a unique company with the right team and we need to invest in them earlier, because we want to be there early with them on the ground. It's called Sci-Fi. It's in expense management, allowing corporates to have issuing their own cards for the employees, able to control all these measures for how they can be spent. And they have also a focus to do it in the government level. Given the founder was working in government from before, he understood the petty cash problem that's happening, the leakage that could happen, and they want to enable them to help fix that issue. And that was his main goal. I'm coming in, I know that's the problem, and I'm going to build slowly to fix it. And they got the license to be able to sell to the government now. So Sci-Fi, Ahmed Hagbani is one of our
Hagbani,
companies.
Because he ran customs and did it in customs first. Yes. And so he's like, I know exactly how to do this. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you there, but yeah, super smart guy.
No, I think that it's really interesting thinking about these solutions that people are coming up with from their own experience, right? And also, like, the second that you back something and then everybody wants to actually have the product is clearly you're on the right track. But can you think about some of the sectors that you think might define Saudi Arabia's tech boom in the coming 5 to 10 years based on what you're seeing?
Okay, sure. So what historically mostly has been in delivery, given Jahez IPO and everyone's seeing the right numbers there and the unit of economics making them convinced there is some market there. The other one is fintech, and I believe fintech will continue to be. It is there because of the enablement of government opening up to them the sandbox under SAMA, allowing many fintechs to come in, innovate, and create a solution into a very highly regulated sector. A sector that only banks operated in. You couldn't do anything without any approvals. They say, come here, show us what you want. We'll give you a framework that allows you to play around. And once you prove that you can do it without hurting people's pockets, we'll allow you to go out to the market. And many of these companies that came out, Tamara, Lendo, and others, that is changing how fintechs or the financial sector is operating, becoming leader startups into this industry. The ones that are coming, what we believe in is still the next sector, is still one of them is the B2B SaaS. where you are offering a solution for many of these corporates that are looking to digitize the way they are operating. They understand that if they don't act now, they will be buried from other competitors who are coming in fast with the right solution and more cost efficiencies. So they are looking at these different tech solutions. If you're offering something to them that is reasonable, that helps scale with their growth and offers a solution enabled with AI, will give you a different factor into growing. The enabled AI is the differentiation between before and what we see coming, because now you can't create a solution there without mentioning how you're going to be up to par with the other competitors if you don't have some sort of AI solution helping you learn of what's happening and be able to innovate faster in offerings to your customers. A new one that we think is going to happen is insurance tech. Again, given what happened with fintech, there's a new agency now created by the government, and they are responsible to manage insurance, and they have created their own sandbox for insurance tech. So we believe many people like the sector, see all the money flowing there. Why not make sure tech is part of it and how it can really encapsulate part of the revenues happening there for them to grow.
And you touched on something that's interesting. I mean, there's momentum, right? There's momentum in the ecosystem. You're seeing successful startups go and IPO or get acquired or exit. I mean, you're seeing success stories. Those things always add tailwinds to the broader ecosystem because other people that have an idea or, are working on a concept, they see that success is possible. But I kind of want to ask you about another thing that I think I see and Hannah sees a little bit here, and it's an ecosystem thing, but it's also a cultural thing. And in Silicon Valley and in France and in China and in India, there's sort of a culture of failure being acceptable. And there's never been a VC build out this quickly ever, because VC is also not that old, 45 to 50 years old in general, right? But failure is a really key part of any ecosystem. In Silicon Valley, it's a badge of honor. How many times you failed is something that people sort of respect because you learn a lot from failure. Can that happen organically here? Do you think it will just take time for people to be less afraid of failure? At least from what I'm seeing, there's like I want to do this, I want to take the risk, but I'm worried about what happens if it doesn't work out? Like, what will my family think? What will my friends think? Do you think that we're going to get there in the next 5 years? Will it happen organically? Can there be any initiatives from the government or from other stakeholders to sort of encourage that as part of the ecosystem?
I think it has to happen because, again, with any mature ecosystem, that is the natural way of how things will happen. What the initiatives that I've seen, one is actually a podcast focused on mistakes called Altat. I was part of it. And I shared maybe the problems I faced through my experience as a founder. But also, I noticed many of the founders, maybe it has been leaning to the founders who have succeeded after all. So, okay, yes, I failed before, but look at me now. That's the stories that we've seen mostly happen. But again, I've seen also many, or the VCs I've talked to, they've received pitches from founders who've said, I've done 1, 2, 3, it failed. I've learned, and they actually get a higher weight into evaluating into investing into them, because you want a founder that has struggled, has learned from their mistakes, learned how things are not as easy or wavy as it might seem on their pitch decks, and bringing that to the table and showing this is how I'm going to do it right. It's a new solution. I know how it's doing. I have learned from before, and this is what I'm coming in with. And we see VCs trusting that more as an investor.
I think it's really interesting. And actually, I remember there was a report by the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor that was indicating that Saudis were more willing to take risk today than they have been in the past. But another part of research that I've done really showed that actually Saudis were the initial risk takers, betting on kind of the growth of the country in a very kind of at a time when there was very little there. People that went out and kind of capitalized on some of the opportunities to partner with international organizations and things like that. I mean, I think that there was a lot of funding in early stages of kind of the development of the Saudi economy, but there was a lot of risk taking, and you have certain kind of regions, Qasim, for instance, where it's like they're very known for taking risks. So I think it's almost like you need to kind of connect with that past instead of think about just like that more comfortable part of Saudi's history where people weren't taking as much risks. And so that's kind of bringing me to my next question, which is, do you think that there is enough done kind of with young people to really talk about how to start a business and when is the right time to do that, right? So I think that there's a lot of education that happens around kind of thinking about your future career, for instance, that's picking up some momentum at the moment. But that means a lot of people really want to go and jump into startups and become entrepreneurs. But perhaps that's also encouraging them to take risks earlier than when they should. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think maybe the leading organization that has been pushing youth to go into entrepreneurship is MISC. MISC Foundation has created several programs, many of them education, many of them internships into tech startups, allowing them to learn about how the ecosystem is before you do that step, creating a MISC entrepreneurship school online, allowing people to learn what it means to be an entrepreneur. But again, I am weary about people jumping in just because of, I want to get rich fast. That's the mentality you don't want, because every founder will come out. If you think it's easy, if you think you're going to make money, you are in the wrong industry. Go work, get a salary, work on the career path. That's a better way of getting money, because 95% of startups fail. Most probably, if you're creating something without really any previous training and learnings before, it is high likeliness to fail. The ones that succeed when they're young is a very small percentage. I think the median of a founder who succeeded is, I think, 45 or 40. It's not the early ones that you've seen, the Facebooks and others. They're the ones who get most of the media. But the actual ones that actually succeed in raising startups are on the other side. So these are things that I believe many founders try to tackle when they speak about their journeys and the different online presence. I believe it's many of things investors try to mention also, as in go do something else with a startup, learn how they're doing it, and then come back with a more sophisticated idea. I think you can't also die down that excitement, passion. Many of them come in with, I know this is a problem, I want to do it no matter what, and they go, and it's a good journey to be in, especially when you're young. There's less risk that you have to do. Why not? Go ahead. I'd say sometimes going through a startup is a mini MBA. You're really doing so many learnings, many of them over your head, but it is one way of learning.
No, absolutely. And actually, my first job after finishing my master's was joining a startup. And we all say that we got an MBA by doing that. And I mean, it was also like, I studied development. And so they were worried that I was trying to turn the company into a nonprofit. Anyways,
School of Hard Knocks.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So can you think of some of the government initiatives that are trying to support some of these startups and fast track their kind of market entry, the ones that are ready? You know, I know there are many, and you mentioned some, and you mentioned MISC, but what else can be done that can alleviate some of those kind of points that are common with startups?
I think going back to the NTTP program, it is really tackling companies of all stages to help them better address the challenge that many of them face. Especially if you are a person who's been working through a company, a corporate company, and you're thinking now to go and create your own company, they have a program saying it's the founder salary. Come in. We'll cover that part. You have Saudi developers who are very expensive because talent is one of the challenges that we have here. We'll cover part of that challenge. Are you a deep tech startup? You're creating something new that needs R&D? We'll come and support some of that R&D. Are you trying to convince a corporate to use your solution and they're saying it's too costly for them to do the switch? We'll fund that cost and we'll help that corporate take on your startup as a solution. So these are very interesting ways of approaching the challenge that many startups face in this industry. I don't think you'd find this support anywhere else in the region in the way it's done here. But in other ways, there are also other accelerators that they could join, even at a scale part, whether it was from Google startups. They have one. Oracle has some support credits and things. You see all these multinational companies coming in with their own programs to support startups. Even Microsoft has one. Focus on Saudi, all focus on people who want to create and scale up their companies. It's just knowing which ones is worth the effort and the return on investment that you need as a founder from joining all of these programs, which one will actually help you move from the first milestone to the next.
So, one of the things that I think is really important that might be missing from our education system at the moment is financial literacy. And we hear a lot of people talking about it. And it would really help people to kind of understand how to manage their finances when they're starting a company, right? But what does it mean to you? And what kinds of things do you think are happening in that space to make it a place for people to go, a safer pathway for young people to pursue?
It is a big challenge. And one of the main I give to many newly founders who raise investments is cash, cash, cash. You really know how to understand how to manage your cash flows, how to understand how to spend your investment in the right way to get the return on investment to help you reach to the next milestone, how to manage the marketing spend to make sure you're getting as much for every real you put in. These are elements that with companies with great founders, with great solutions still fail because they haven't managed that well. I think there are some programs out there. One of them I'm familiar with is Sitco from Ruwad. They focus on educating founders about how to manage finance. And also they have another program for financial literacy for kids to understand how to manage their
Really?
Really. And I've noticed actually many schools now started to teach entrepreneurship in schools. But I don't think it's yet in the public schools. It's more on the private ones. But I see my daughter coming to me talking about e-commerce and building a company and okay. And I kept explaining to her what I do. I'm not a doctor or an engineer, which everyone knows what it is. I'm an investor and what investors do. And so it's interesting that we can relate on that element of how you can really build a company and be an impactful person in the economy.
So Hussein, let's conclude with this. So I want to ask you about sort of the next 5 years and 10 and 20 years, but to kind of anchor it into what we've talked about. I mean, the Saudi entrepreneurship and ecosystem build out that is happening, really, you were at the very beginning of that. And now you're very much an integral part of that. And a story to kind of corroborate this is when we first met, I basically emailed you out of the blue and I was like, this guy knows what he's doing here. I'm coming from Silicon Valley to here. And within, an hour, you wrote back, yes, come to my office. Let's meet. I'd like to hear what you're doing. And you were incredibly helpful when, you didn't have to do that, by the way, but I really appreciate it. But it told me that this sort of ecosystem build out is something that is part of your DNA at this point. It's been your professional career, and you have a personal stake in it, of course, but you also have sort of a national stake in it. And you're on the board of the Venture Capital and Private Equity Association. So you're just like so into this ecosystem. I want to ask you, so the next 5 years, there's no one better to answer this question. What can we expect out of the ecosystem build out in venture capital and now private equity, which is really starting to pick up? And, what are the wider goals? What does 2030 look like if it's a success story?
I believe the main goal we have now is we want to see more unicorns. And that's going to happen with all the startups that we're trying to support to go IPOs. As many rumored recently, there are a lineup of companies looking to go into IPO. And I believe that will be the trending effect that will create a network effect into the ecosystem, allowing people to see how can we impact the ecosystem, creating jobs, clearly showing how we can be contributing to the economy and how we can actually give better returns than maybe other asset classes. That will help more investors see this as the way to actually create impact and make money at the same time. We'll see much more VCs, much more startups, success stories, exits, people who go out of these exits and create more companies and allowing more people to enter into this ecosystem. I think we are still at the starting point of doing that. For now, we have only 3 IPOs of tech startups, 3 of them being Sun, insurance tech, which we mentioned from before, and Nice One, an e-commerce company. Many of them will be the success story that everyone starts to inspire from to create their own companies.
Yeah, and you'll also see if that starts really happening and hitting a fever pitch, you'll see international tech companies look at the Tadawul and say, hey, this could be a good place for our IPO. Everything here seems to sell out within an hour. This is a good spot for us to be located. Hussein Attar, venture capitalist, tech influencer, and just great guy and wonderful host. Thank you so much for joining us on the 2030. Really appreciate all of your insights and good luck with all of your investments and everything you're doing.
It was a real pleasure. And maybe just one thing to add, if you need to know anything about the ecosystem here in Saudi Arabia, I've created a director website. You might know about it already.
I've seen it. It's awesome. Yes.
You
Please
need
tell
to
us about it.
know who are the VCs, who are the angel investment networks, startups, events that are happening, podcasts that you can follow that will teach you everything about the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Saudi. It's a good reference point. It's with my name, HusseinAttar.com. Go there and just, you can learn everything about what you need to know about Saudi.
We're going to share a link to that in wherever you're seeing or listening to this. Thanks again, Hussein. Awesome stuff.